This week, Tesla and Apple are teaming up to bring a feature that a lot of people have been begging for.
Plus, a new law is aiming to cap your 0 to 60 times to more than 5 seconds. And Tesla just introduced a super range variant that no one saw coming.
All right, guys, here's the deal. We know that you like us. We know you're checking us out. We can actually look at the data. It shows that 7 out of 10 of you guys that watch are not subscribed yet. Subscribing doesn't cost you a thing, but it does help us out a lot. It helps us get noticed, and then we're able to share exclusive content with you guys.
That's right. You can also listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms. You can even scroll the bottom of your screen, see the chapters, jump to the topic of your choice as well.
All right, let's get into it, though. So many people have talked about this for so long. Why doesn't Tesla have CarPlay?
So, Kim, Tesla's actually developing Apple CarPlay for its vehicles. This is a report from Bloomberg that has been confirmed. It looks like it's actually one of the more highly requested features. Bloomberg makes it sound like Tesla owners are saying it's one of the highly requested features, but there are surveys that show that 1 in 3 buyers of cars in general kind of view Apple CarPlay as a non-negotiable. That's where this comes in. Tesla generally, of course, gets praised for its UI and software, and people think that's good enough. Possibly they're leading this way to draw in more customers now with CarPlay coming natively to Teslas. And what's unique about this implementation, it's not going to be a replacement or some sort of a software implementation where you have it from your phone mirrored onto your screen. It's actually going to have a dedicated window in your center screen. It's going to mesh very well with Tesla's existing UI, and it's going to be optimized for Tesla, but be on part of your screen. So supposedly it's going to be just as good.
So you're saying like with this, you'd still be able to access Tesla's built-in apps and be able to see CarPlay at the same time. It's not like a one or the other type situation.
Exactly. It's going to be kind of harmonious in the way it's implemented. And they're saying FSD visualization is not going to be changed. Your core software displays are going to remain largely the same. And this possibly comes in the next couple of software updates, possibly at the very end of the year. We've seen Tesla do big holiday software updates. This could be one of those. And talks are that this is something that they want to do because sales numbers possibly, getting a boost out of this because it being such an important feature for so many non-Tesla owners.
So I think it really makes sense for Tesla to do something like this. I talk to a lot of people all the time, and they say that they like having a UI that they can just go into any car with. It makes it easy to switch cars when you're used to CarPlay. Now, here's the thing about it. I think that people will get into Tesla and then realize that Tesla's UI is so good that they don't actually end up using CarPlay inside Tesla.
Well, some would argue, myself included, that Tesla's UI is actually a better version of what CarPlay offers. The thing is, you go into most other cars, their UI is pretty crappy. Apple actually gives you something you're familiar with and you've used in the past, and it makes it a little bit better. And you think Tesla needs that, but I think, again, I'd argue it's the only car that doesn't need an upgraded UI because I think its UI already works so well with that car. But this is going to try to somehow mesh that in and make it just as seamless.
But are there features of CarPlay that maybe you're not thinking about because we're not used to using CarPlay in our day-to-day lives? Like, are there features of CarPlay that you guys would use in your vehicles that maybe, are better than what Tesla has? Like, if you're thinking about when you're getting your text messages come across, maybe your music, certain apps that are in CarPlay that possibly could be better than what Tesla has. I don't use CarPlay very often other than when I'm testing out other vehicles.
That's when you realize you kind of need it. And that's exactly what, the Tesla's perspective is, that people might think they need it. And it's a reason why they don't want to be coming over to the brand. But
it makes a lot of sense. I don't know how much it costs for them to implement this, but it's sort of like this refresh. And if they get more sales, it seems like it's sort of a win-win for them.
And it's a complete reversal, too, by the way, for Elon Musk's stance when it comes to Apple. You might know that he's criticized its ecosystem, the App Store policies, them kind of poaching employees from Tesla when it came to their car project as well. So this is something that Apple and Tesla have kind of had friction over for many years. And it seems like, their tech, Tesla's become tech, and this is... they should have a very strong relationship, but it's never been the case until looks like just now.
Yeah. Do you think this is the beginning of maybe something else happening with Apple and Tesla? I know when we talked to Larry Goldberg a few months ago, he had talked about how he would like Tesla to have some kind of ownership with Apple.
Yeah, at least some sort of a relationship, and this absolutely could be the start of it if that isn't where it ends up going. And obviously, again, there's business rationale behind all of this because of that whole survey saying 2 out of 3 car buyers would not even look at a car unless it had that feature.
So what if, and I'm just saying what if, and maybe I'm starting rumors here, is Tesla allows CarPlay in the vehicles, and then Tesla maybe works with Apple to develop a phone.
You love the Tesla Pi, the Pi phone.
The Pi phone. Maybe this is where we'll get that.
Oh my gosh.
Starlink. I mean, it could be good.
What's interesting is there is no mention of Android Auto being implemented into the Tesla UI. So it is only the Apple CarPlay that is going to be implemented in this update. Now, what makes this even more fascinating is that GM just announced they are going to begin to ditch Apple CarPlay in all of their vehicles. They've actually done it in their EVs, or started to in the last couple of years. It is now across the entire lineup. And this is happening on the same week that Tesla's announcing they're embracing the Apple CarPlay features.
Okay, more on that in a second. But speaking of deleting Apple CarPlay, how about deleting yourself from all those spam lists? So most people don't realize, but data brokers are actually legally allowed to sell your private info online to anyone with a credit card. Don't believe me? Just search your name right now and you can probably find your address, your phone number. This puts you at risk for scams, phishing attempts, and identity theft. Probably the most important thing that I've ever done for my online safety was start using Delete Me back in 2023. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that removes your information from hundreds of data broker and people search sites. Wirecutter recently named Delete Me the #1 data removal service. My latest report showed that Delete Me scanned nearly 5,000 listings and found 27 personally identifiable info and 8 data brokers who had access to them all. They went ahead and removed all of them. Doing that myself would have taken me 78 hours. And the reason that it works is because it's not a one-time thing. They continue to scan and remove all year long. So you guys can go ahead and try it yourself at joindeleteme.com/KimJava, and be sure to use my code KimJava to get 20% off all consumer plans. All right, let's get back to the video.
So Kim, GM is actually ditching its Apple CarPlay features because you might remember back in 2023, they gradually began moving their EVs away from Apple CarPlay. Mary Barra, GM CEO, now says they're going to begin to implement this across the entire lineup because they've got their own new centralized computing system and infotainment they're rolling out, going more native, not relying on other product makers to be able to have this feature. So they're leaning in on this. By 2028. Every car in their lineup, all 40 models, I believe, will lose this.
So I think this is a trend from all the OEMs right now that they're going to be doing this. I was just at an event last week with BMW, and they have their new platform called the Neue Klasse that's coming out. And I think we're going to see more and more of this.
Yeah, GM is saying this is a new software-defined era for their vehicles. They've put some $2+ billion in software in 2025. So this is where they're leaning in. They're saying their customer feedback says switching between Apple CarPlay and the native infotainment is kind of clunky. And they're saying that they're going to really go heavy on subscription-based models and for revenue, whether it be OnStar, Super Cruise, over third-party control like CarPlay by 2028.
It's just really interesting that they're all going away from CarPlay and then Tesla's coming back to CarPlay. But it might work out again for Tesla because they'll say, hey, if you do want CarPlay, come to our car. We're the only ones that have it now because everyone else is ditching it.
That is really interesting. But let's move on to the new Model Y variant because this is going to get your feathers ruffled up, I think, because the Model Y Plus is a thing now. Remember, we had the Model Y L. That was in China. Model Y Plus gets you 510 miles of range that is specific to China. Yet again, 5-seat, long range, rear wheel drive, and they're calling it industry-leading range at 510 miles or about 821 kilometers.
Well, you know what? My feathers are not getting ruffled up because I feel like this is clickbait.
It is clickbait.
It's clickbait because this is on the CLTC scale, which we know is very overly optimistic. And it's actually going to be like real world range, like the long range variant that we already have here in the US.
It is. 358 miles is what it translates to for the EPA. Now, in China, if you're purchasing this, they're advertising it as over 800 kilometers, which for the Model Y in any market, it is the most range it's ever had. In fact, it's one more mile more than what we have here in the United States. And it's using a ternary lithium-ion battery pack from LG. That's 78 kilowatt hours. Same packet used for the Model 3 long range that has 830 kilometers again in the CLTC scale. But the price point is what's impressive on this one and kind of speaks to the competitive nature of pricing right now over there in China, because it starts at around $40,000 in China.
Well, they're doing this obviously to keep up with the sales. They've dropped from the top 10, and this October was their lowest monthly sales in China.
It was since 2022. So they've dropped out of that top 10 list. But what's interesting is there's pretty significant demand on this particular setup. So again, marketing or clickbait seems to go a long way over there, because delivery timelines went from 2 to 4 weeks initially for this Y Plus to now 4 to 6 weeks within hours of launch. And it actually outranges the Xpeng G6, but it is a bit more expensive than the Xpeng G6 as well. So balance between, hey, we'll give you 800 kilometers of range, and the price is going to be a little bit more, but still competitive.
We clickbaited it in our intro saying that it was this new super range variant, and now you guys are watching. So as much as you hate clickbait, it does work, and it works for sales. So, that's why they do it. But there is something else that China's getting that is not clickbait, and I am sort of like, this one ruffles my feathers. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. And it's part of the Model YL. They're actually getting an AC power adapter for that vehicle, where you're getting vehicle to load capabilities out of your Model Y. Plug this adapter into the rear charge port of the Model YL. A lot like what you have here in the US with the EV9 and other EVs, where you're plugging an adapter and then you're able to plug into your charge port and draw power from your battery pack. Precisely what you can do. $84 for that adapter in China, or free for Model YL early adopters. The power output is 220 volts. You get 10 amps, 2.2 kilowatts of continuous power, and small appliances, tools, lighting, things of that nature, you can now plug into this adapter and use it. It's actually different because it's a direct charge port plug-in, unlike vehicles like the Cybertruck that do have a feature where you can, of course, do vehicle to load. This one right here is not a mobile connector, so you're not actually putting a port down and plugging it in on the ground to a connector. It's going right into the charge port itself. And there is talks that this will be available in the US and in Canada, starting with the Model Y Performance, I believe. I'm not sure if there are physical limitations that disable our Model Y, for example, for having this feature, or it gets that at some point soon. But V2L is coming to vehicles. It looks like early 2026. So once Model Y Performance rolls out in these markets, you'll be able to pick up an adapter too.
I just feel like it's an American company and it should come to America first. But I get that China is the most competitive market, so they like to bring these things over there, do things a little bit differently.
Americans bought EVs. That could be us, but yeah, that's just not how it works.
For those that don't know, like vehicle to load, like what that means, it means that you're basically able to take all the energy that's inside of your car and then transfer that somewhere else. So that's what we say when we say vehicle to load, in case you're new to all this and you're just watching or listening for the first time. Now, I'm curious, with this adapter, will you be able to use that for your home? Like be able to, like a generator for your house?
For light appliances. Again, at 2.2 kilowatts, and I think it was 220 volts, you're not going to be able to power your home, I don't think, on the Model Y. But it is able to get your tools and lights and other accessories going.
Can you charge other vehicles with it?
Yes, that I understand is the case. It may not be super fast, but it is.
And China's really in the news this week because they're also doing something that kind of feels like a step backwards. So the 0 to 60 times, they're actually going to be restricting that because they're saying that these EVs are too fast. They're causing crashes with that instant torque that you get from an EV.
Well, they're saying the Ministry of Public Securities actually drafted a EV acceleration limit, and it could go into law as early as January of 2026. They want 0 to 60 times for all cars, and EVs are their biggest problems because there's a lot of them there in China, and a lot of them are quick. They want them all to be greater than 5 seconds. So that applies to all passenger vehicles. This does include EVs, hybrids, even gas cars. The purpose, they're saying, is to avoid unintended acceleration due to driver inexperience or surprise torque.
Have there been that many crashes that this is like necessary?
Apparently so in China. Again, the vast majority of cars on the roads, when we were there, we noticed were electrified. So there's a lot of acceleration available there to the consumers. And they've seen accidents linked to cars that are taking off at red lights or just stop signs and so on. And there are models there like the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra that actually has a 0 to 60 of 1.98 seconds. So we're talking like Model S Plaid fast. And, when you have cars like that, and we know how affordable some of these cars are, they're worried that once performance EVs become mass available, as they are now, for them, it becomes an issue.
Well, if you're using that instant torque to be able to like cut off other cars, yes, that's dangerous. You shouldn't be doing that. But if you're just like accelerating really fast, having fun, like that should be allowed. And I really hope the US doesn't look at this and be like, oh, maybe we should do something like that, because that's one of the reasons I love EVs.
Well, here's the thing. So the vehicles will be limited to that out of the box by default. But if you want to engage your performance numbers and get to the fastest capability of your car, they're going to put a driver action required feature where you go into your settings in the menu and you're able to then enable extra power. So you can't just take off willy-nilly, but in theory you could if you wanted to engage it and be ready to do that. So people could still do that, I guess, but it's not going to be readily available every single time. Maybe it defaults to going away every single time until you actually want to engage it by going into the menu.
Well, we have EVs here that do that with like certain launch modes and things that you have to go in to be able to get that instant torque. We've tested a bunch of GM vehicles that have had.
That's true. I mean, there's max mode, and even the Fisker Ocean, I believe, had the 400 boost available where you've got to engage it when you actually want to use it. It's going to be something along those lines. And they're saying that driving schools in China actually generally use gas cars or just cars that are slower than that. And new EV drivers are kind of unprepared for this extra torque. So it's going to be something you'll have to unlock every single time if it goes into law. And it looks like it might.
Yeah. I can see the benefit for new drivers in driving schools limiting that. Like, thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? We have a kid that's 2 years away from driving, a year really away from like getting his permit. And do I really want him just like experiencing that instant torque and like knowing how to?
I'm rooting for V14, 15, and 16 when it comes to.
He's just like, we're going full self-driving. Like, yes, he'll get his driver's license, but he's not really going to drive.
He doesn't have much interest. Kids nowadays have a lot less interest in driving than when we were kids, when we were begging to get behind a wheel. And I think once autonomy kind of hits its stride, by the time our kids are starting to really get going, maybe they'll just want to be on TikTok as opposed to be behind the wheel. So we'll see. So Kim, we were talking about Tesla sales in China kind of dwindling in recent months. Well, looking at it globally, the numbers for September just came out, and Tesla sales for Model Y, number one globally in EVs, running away with it, where Model 3 comes in number two. Number three is actually the Wuling Mini EV. And beyond that, the Geely Geom was number 4. And look at number 5 through 12, all BYD EVs. So interesting to see this happen in the last couple of months, where again, we hear about the decline or interest in EVs, but then see the sales coming in, showing that Tesla is still running away with it up there at the very top.
So these numbers are global numbers, and Tesla's probably helped a lot with the EV tax credit ending, and that last minute surge probably helped with those numbers as well. Also, something that's pretty cool is that the supercharging feature that tells you how many stalls are available is now coming to Google Maps.
Yeah, so we've had this obviously on Tesla's center screen for quite a while, specific only to Teslas. Now it's available. This live supercharging access is on Google Maps, whether it be on your phone or online on a website, for superchargers, showing you the real open number of stalls at any given moment via an icon overlay. And basically then get to immediately choose which stall you're going to pull up to, knowing that stall is currently available, and reduces wait times, reduces any sort of like friction built up.
This is fascinating though, because we just talked about how Tesla's going to be getting CarPlay, but now we have this feature that's going to be coming to Android Auto and Google Maps first, where it's not going to be coming to iOS and Apple CarPlay.
Not yet, at least. Yeah, this is going to be pushed back for them. It's the first of its kind that we've seen this, right? Where Apple gets the back seat on this one and Android and Google get it first. All right, Kim, a new study just came out, and along the same lines of talking about trying to get a surge of interest in EVs, J.D. Power's new report actually shows that EV interest is surging over the past couple of months in the U.S., despite the EV tax credit going away. I found this really, really eye-opening, because the number of active car shoppers who said they're very likely to consider another EV rose to 24% in October. That's actually the highest percentage that we've seen since January. And overall, nearly 60% of potential buyers said they're at least somewhat likely to go electric in the next 12 months, 2.6 point increase from September as well. So we know that even in 2026, going into next year, 243,000 franchise EV leases are expected to expire, and more than triple the number that expired this year. So with that said, and seeing over 60% are saying they're going to, possibly replace their existing lease EV with another EV, it's an interesting observation to see where this potentially goes.
What I like about this is like right now the headlines are all EV sales are down, which has so much to do with the tax credit expiring and kind of this hangover month going on right now. But it kind of shows this shift in the mindset really, because people are, with this study, they're saying they're very likely to consider an EV for their next purchase. So we really see this transition starting to happen. And I think while we won't see this right away, it's kind of like a future prediction on what's going to happen. So we've been traveling a ton. It's been a minute since we've been able to sit down and talk about the shareholders meeting, but there was so much discussed there. And there were some images actually of Cybercab, and people are noticing some subtle changes.
Yeah, changes to the butterfly doors. There are now frameless windows in there, rounded bottom corners for safety, apparently. The door extension, the B-pillar is a little bit longer, rear design, kind of sloped, gives it more of a Model Y look. But the interior actually adds ambient lighting inside the door cards. People notice the seats are flatter, possibly kind of make it easier to replace or clean, where it was rounded in the early depictions of Cybercab. And the biggest news we got, of course, was the production timeline of going to April 2026. That's when Cybercab is expected to enter production. 10 seconds per vehicle is how much they're expecting each vehicle to take to produce because of the unboxed approach. And annual run rate initially going to be about 1 million Cybercabs per year, working 12-hour lines, 350 days per year. And Musk even talked about there is a fallback in place. So if regulations are not approved by the time this comes to production here in April, they'll ship with steering wheel and pedals just as an initial approach.
And as far as Robotaxi is concerned, and we're talking about the Model Y fleet that they currently have right now, they have it in Austin, Texas, they have it in San Francisco, but we're going to see expansion to new cities. Last week we were in Vegas and we were doing the loop, and we were talking a little bit about Robotaxi coming to Vegas and potentially putting it in that loop because it makes a lot of sense.
I asked the drivers, and they said they'd never, after we got out, you kind of went off on me.
I think they were scared for their jobs, and you're basically like telling them like
I asked them if they have any insight on when that's going to happen. They're like, this is news to us. When did this all happen?
They're like, it won't happen. It won't happen. They're still going to need us in the car. And I tried to assure them, like,
Initially, need you.
You'll probably still be in the car as a safety driver, because PJ is sitting here basically just telling them that they're out of a job.
I was asking them if they had any insights on that, and apparently I stepped on some boundaries that they didn't like, but no.
Yeah, they had no insights at all. We definitely knew more about it than they did. But,
so Dallas, Houston, and Miami will get Robotaxi coverage as well by the end of this year. Is what the goal is. Again, this is the Model Y fleet. The safety driver in these new markets will be there for 5 months, and they'll eventually be phased out.
I mean, here's the deal: full self-driving is getting so good. It's so good inside your vehicles that you have right now. We use it all the time. And it all goes back to the autonomous driving. That's where Tesla's future is. And full self-driving is so good that they now have a new referral program for it.
They do. Yep. So if you use someone's referral, this is brand new. You're able to get 30 days free full self-driving trial by just using someone's referral link. And the person that has the referral used gets credit. I believe it's $15 of Tesla credit. You can do this 30 times over. So $450 of Tesla credit can be gained by someone, and you obviously get 30 days of free FSD on this. And if you end up purchasing it, you actually get $250 of credit if someone purchases using your free trial. And if they add it to their vehicle using your link, you get $500 of credit.
I just sent one of my friends the free trial because before I even knew about this, last week I was telling him, you have to try it again. It's so good now. It's not like what it used to be. And I didn't even know they had this referral program, but I naturally was just like, it's good now. Try it. Like, you're really going to like it. We just renewed.
Yeah, we did on your Model X. It's a hardware 3. So we renewed the subscription on that one. And I actually was just talking to my dentist a couple of days ago, trying to convince him on his Tesla Model Y to try FSD as well, because he has a V3 that he tried, a couple of hardware 3 he tried a couple of years ago and was scared off by it. I'm like, you got to try it again. It's a lot better.
It's really interesting too, because we have the new Model Y with hardware 4, and then we have my Model X as hardware 3. And we do notice some subtle differences between full self-driving based on the new hardware. Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten like the new big update yet. I'm excited. As soon as we get that, we'll make a video with it. But I've kind of been like waiting for that in order to make a new full self-driving video.
All right, Kim, moving on. GM is announcing what it thinks it's going to be America's most affordable EV. This is their very successful Bolt EV. Their second-gen version just entered production. Starting price, $27,600, 11-inch touchscreen, 11-inch digital gauge
but
cluster as
no
well.
Apple CarPlay.
No CarPlay, I'm not on this one. 65 kilowatt hour LFP battery. You're getting 255 miles of range on this base version. It does have native NACS port now on this vehicle and 150 kilowatt peak charging, which always leaves room for more to be desired for me. Because again, when you look at this, you think it's great, and it is a great deal. I just wish automakers valued that, because clearly they're not selling this for someone who's going to be using it, they think is going to be using it for road trips, but they really should have that mindset, because this should be over 200 kilowatt.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
You know, I rented a Tesla even last week, and normally we just charge at home, so I don't need to like experience superchargers that often. But when I was staying at the hotel and I didn't have home charging and I was just relying on superchargers, it really made me think about how important having like a fast charging speed really is, because I had to just sit there and wait, which isn't long because, you know, I was in a Tesla, but for other cars that take a long time, it really does make a big difference.
Well, yeah, exactly. It kind of sours your experience with it, right? But what's unique about this is that you get bidirectional V2H power out of this new Chevy Bolt EV. Deliveries, again, January of next year. But a lot of people commenting about this saying, this is what we wanted out of the cheaper Model 3 and Model Y. Why can't Tesla do this? Give us a $27,000 starting price. And, you know, that's going to be available in the Chevy Bolt EV.
I do think that this is going to sell. I think that this is going to be one of the top sellers for them. I think a lot of people like the Bolt. They want a refresh of it, and that's what they're giving people.
And when we spoke to Tesla directly at the unveil of the standard Model 3 and Y, they intentionally said they didn't want to cheapen the Model 3 and Y to that extent to make it this affordable, I guess, because they wanted to still have some sort of a premium leverage, right?
Okay, but now, hear me out. And this is what Tesla does all the time, is they'll adjust their pricing as soon as something like this comes out.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that would all powers to us, the consumer, if Tesla is able to come down to the lower 30s to be like, hey, you can get this for 27 or get us for 30.
Or they'll temporarily, you know, they always do this. And speaking of cheap EVs, last week when I was in LA, I drove around a $4,000 4-seat Chinese EV all around LA, and it was an experience. I have a video coming out on that. You'll see it pretty soon.
Now, was this Chinese EV the Cherry Feng Yun SUV?
No, but I have seen some videos of that one failing its Stairway to Heaven climb.
Yeah, this is over in the Tianmen Mountain 999 step. It's that iconic landmark there, park, where it's called the Heaven Staircase. It goes 300 meters high, has over 60-degree gradient. And you remember Range Rover did a commercial back in 2018 where they went up this slope and kind of showed the vehicle being able to power through there. Well, the Cherry Feng Yun tried this and it crashed miserably, slid backwards, smashed the guardrail. Apparently the metal shackle on the safety rope detached and wrapped around the right wheel, and it kind of blocked power from it. So that's the reason why it wasn't able to go up. And it damaged this historic landmark. The SUV was actually stuck for over 2 hours, and they closed the park for the next couple of days. They just opened it today, I believe, for the first time. And Cherry's been very apologetic about this, saying that, you know, we didn't do enough risk assessment and did poor planning on this, and they're going to commit to restoring this, paying for everything as well.
I was really impressed with their apology when I read it. Like, I was like, wow, they're owning up to their fault, what they did wrong. And, you know, I don't know in the US, like if a company would like take the ownership of their faults the way they did.
I think the the repercussions maybe in using, you know, Chinese land or government there is probably a little bit more stringent than if you damage a state park here in the US maybe. It's obviously not a good look. They tried to show Range Rover did this. We're going to outdo them. I think Range Rover did it in 21 minutes and 30 some odd seconds. So the goal here was to outperform that. And clearly the vehicle, they think is capable of it, but something went wrong and the wheel got caught in some ropes that were there and couldn't climb anymore.
And now it's like embarrassing because it's just gone viral everywhere, comparing it of their massive fail. It's like the wrong publicity.
Yeah.
When you're not trying to get that. But we have some really good videos coming out for you guys in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. It helps make all these videos possible. And thanks again for joining us. Whether you're watching or you're listening, we appreciate you.
Take care.